Hey guys, this will be a summary for Arc 7 Chapter 8. If you haven't already, I highly recommend you check out my Arc 7 Chapter 7 summary. Anyways, let's get into it. The chapter starts with another flashback. Subaru is being praised by Emilia and he is cleaning the floor. Puck appears and he tries to wind up Subaru. We see that Emilia had finished her daily studies and Puck had located Subaru, so they showed up. Subaru was actually thankful for this, stating he would be happy to spend even 1 second with Emilia, and he thanks Puck for his brilliant plan. Emilia of course didn't realise Subaru's intentions of what he was saying since she's pretty dense, and Puck states to try and ask again in the nighttime when he isn't around. After all, he's a parental figure. Puck tries to prevent insects from getting close to his beautiful daughter. Subaru thinks about spirits and half-elves and starts thinking about their lifespans. It's natural for elves and spirits to be around for thousands of years, but he is a human. Once Subaru mentions the idea about his lifespan, Emilia interrupts him, stating that he's still a child and it's too early to think about life and lifespans. Of course, Emilia saying this doesn't see Subaru as a man, so he isn't even at the starting line of getting into a relationship. However, Subaru will not give up. Emilia praised Subaru and told him to keep trying hard as he worked and eventually people would look at him. Subaru stated he only wanted Emilia to have eyes for him, but of course she didn't understand what he meant, stating that she can look at Subaru whenever he wants and that it isn't an issue. Emilia then said she would come back later to check on Subaru, but she cut herself off, realising that Subaru works hard so he doesn't disappoint himself. We swap back to Subaru doing work in the camp, as he remembers the flashback we just witnessed. Rem is immobile and Lewis is out of action, so Subaru is pulling their weight due to the no work, no food philosophy. Subaru spent a day cleaning the tent, however there was someone that was a bad actor. Someone was going against Subaru. This person was Lewis. Lewis was following Subaru around and Subaru had no clue how to act around her since she doesn't have the witch's scent anymore. At this point, Subaru had a bad opinion of the scent of the witch since it's the main reason why Rem dislikes him, even though his scent has saved him numerous times. Subaru again concluded that someone related to the witch cult should have the scent or relationship to the miasma, yet Lewis doesn't have it. Having the scent links you to the witch represents evil, but Lewis has no scent, which means that she isn't evil. Subaru was confused. In his confusion, Lewis knocked over a few tools. This is the reason why Subaru said there was a bad actor. Subaru would clean up a mess, then Lewis would knock something over, and he would have to re-clean it up. Subaru thinks back to when he was at school, the idea that he wasn't selectively targeted and harassed. He was simply ignored. He thinks about one of the people that gave him the printouts whenever he missed a lesson. The people at Subaru's school weren't bad people, and Subaru hopes that they are doing well. Subaru cleans the tent. As he makes his way out, he trips over and in front of him is Jamal, the violent man. Jamal stomped on Subaru's fingers as he screamed out in pain. Lewis then jumped onto Jamal's leg and Jamal picked her up by the hair. And shockingly, Subaru defended Lewis, stating that Lewis was a kid and there's no reason to treat her roughly. Jamal stated that Subaru treated Lewis badly, so why was he defending her now? As he continued to hurt Lewis, causing Lewis to scream out in pain. Subaru states that Jamal would regret it if he messes with Lewis, but Jamal of course doesn't believe Subaru, thinking that he's bluffing. Subaru thinks deep down that this harassment may not make Lewis go back to normal, and it seemed that all of this didn't actually make Lewis go back to normal, although Subaru didn't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing, because of course if she went back to normal, then Jamal would have got massacred. Jamal states that he hates all of them, Rem, Lewis and Subaru. Jamal kicks Subaru and states that 2 of his men were killed by Rem, and Jamal would have killed them all if it wasn't for the knife that Subaru had. Jamal blamed Todd for his interception, and therefore Jamal needed a reason to kill Subaru. Jamal would try and provoke Subaru and then kill him in self-defense. He wanted Subaru to feel pain. No matter what though, Subaru wouldn't retaliate. This was Jamal's revenge due to Rem's actions, and due to that, Subaru wouldn't retaliate since it could result in Rem being hurt. However, they were interrupted. A young man with orange hair appeared and Jamal retreated. It was Todd. Todd saw Jamal heading this way, so he followed him. Jamal states that Todd is only interested in Subaru due to the dagger he possessed. Jamal tells Subaru to watch himself, and then he leaves the tent. Todd then helps Subaru up and makes sure he's okay. Subaru wants to know where Rem is. It turns out she's cooking, and she can cook if she's sitting down. Since she's in a public space, Todd doesn't believe Jamal will actually do anything. Todd explains that Jamal is a rising star in the academy and goes on to explain the ranking system in Wallachia. Again, if you're not sure about the Wallachian ranking system, I highly recommend you check the Wikia or read EX Novel 4. Essentially, Jamal doesn't have the talent to become one of those divine generals, so he wants to become a general of the army, but Todd doesn't believe he's capable of that position. Subaru wants to meet with Rem, and Todd checks up on Lewis, who then barks in response. We see Rem, Lewis and Subaru sitting together eating lunch. They got the scraps since they were strangers and the last in line. Rem wanted to feel like she was capable of something since she was useless. Subaru of course felt saddened hearing this, and Rem now understands that Subaru truly knew her before she had amnesia, but she still can't accept that she is called Rem, since she can't really identify with her name. Rem wants to hear Lewis's perspective on her. This is something Lewis can't do, and if she could, Subaru would have issues with it. Either way, Todd strolls up and tells them to cheer up. Todd puts his arm around Subaru's shoulder and states that Subaru has gotten better at talking to Rem. Todd is actually whispering in Subaru's ear, but it turns out that Rem can actually hear this and she gets irritated. Lewis then barks and agrees with Rem. Todd tells Subaru to not be discouraged, and Subaru talks about Todd's fiancée, a person who he's separated from. Todd is lonely, so that's one of the reasons why he hangs around Subaru. Todd joins Subaru and the group, and they eat together. Todd states they'll be out here until they find the people of Shudrak. Subaru ponders about telling Todd about the masked man. After all, Todd is pretty much a bro at this point, but he needs to confirm whether or not they're looking for the Shudrakian people and if they're going to harm them. Todd states that some of these people, who are very powerful by the way, do not bow before the Emperor. In a place where the strong govern the weak, this is unacceptable. So if they do not obey the Emperor, then they need to be educated, so a battle may pursue. Subaru jokes around with Todd and does feel bad for Todd. After all, there's the hunter, the traps built by Rem, and the Mabeasts. However, Todd is confused about the Mabeasts. Todd becomes alarmed as both Rem and Subaru confirmed the giant snake having a horn, and he pats their heads, stating that this is very good information because this could have led to a lot of trouble if they weren't aware of it. It turns out that these witch beasts in the Empire are very rare, and Todd goes to tell the general about the witch beast that Subaru, Lewis and Rem have identified, and Subaru, Lewis and Rem are left alone. Subaru thinks about the witch beasts. Most of the obstacles he's faced including the most memorable one, a small red scorpion, Shula. Lewis has fell asleep, and Rem tells Subaru to help carry Lewis back to the tent. Subaru looks at Lewis. She really is a girl on the outside. Rem is walking with a walking stick, and Subaru is wondering if she's okay. Rem tells him to focus on Lewis or else he will drop her. Subaru confirms that he's only carrying Lewis for Rem's sake. As they walk, they talk about Todd and their benefactors. However, Rem states that she can't really trust Todd, since Todd never really asked for Subaru's name. He just refers to people as you. He doesn't try to find out what people are called. Rem tells Subaru to hurry up. As they get to their tent, Subaru ponders about how he feels. Subaru then goes to sleep, and we see that the army and generals spoke over the course of the night. Todd woke Subaru up, again referring to him as you. He then asked Subaru how long he's been sleeping for. Subaru interrupts Todd and states that his name is Natsuki Subaru, and Todd learns this and then continues updating Subaru on the situation. It turns out that due to the beast situation, the mission is being cut short, so Todd can now go to his fiancée. Todd and Subaru celebrate, and Rem tells him to be quiet. Rem was grumpy and asked him if they could smell something strange, not referring to Subaru's body odor. They looked outside and the entire forest of Badheim was burning. It turns out this was Todd's suggestion. The forest's witch beasts could kill a lot of people, so this was the only way to solve the situation. Todd once again thanked Subaru for his information. Subaru, of course, was confused. What about the Shadrakian people? Todd stated that the problem would be solved now also, since they could essentially kill two birds with one stone. Todd went away saying they will leave for town later in the day, and joked that Subaru might get a second dagger as a reward. As Todd went off, all Subaru could see was the burning and the ash. He didn't want this to happen. Rem hobbled up to him and told him not to touch her, since he essentially caused this to happen. Louis woke up and Rem went to check on her. Subaru couldn't chase Rem after what she just said, but then something happened. An arrow was shot and pierced Subaru in the back. Subaru fell to the ground. The tent collapsed. Rem screamed. Louis screamed. Louis crawled up to Subaru. Rem investigated the wound. It was shallow. Subaru would be okay. But it wasn't. The arrow was laced with poison. As Subaru died, he looked at where the arrow came from. 30 meters away, less than 10 seconds if you ran, was a small figure. A young girl, no different from Louis, with eyes burning of hatred, staring straight at Subaru. She held a bow. It was natural that she despised Subaru. It was natural that they wanted him dead. He was the person that drove the girl to act out of hatred. As Subaru fell into darkness, the world ended. So that's the end of the chapter. So my thoughts on the chapter is that it's pretty indicative that Jamal is going to be the enemy. Todd seems to be like a good character. He's a bit suspect, like he does some shady stuff, but I do feel like he's a good character. And obviously Subaru's next step is to prevent Todd from knowing about the witch beasts in the forest. But we'll see where the respawn point is. But yeah, maybe the hunter in the earlier chapters was that young girl, considering they used the same sort of arrows, the small arrows. I'm not sure though, we'll see though. And thank you to my channel members, Louis Stewart, Zyolid, Alternative Xenia 15, Nutrags, OMW, Blue Portal, and Bra Moment.